Hi, everyone. Welcome back from the break. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Christopher Brown, the host of the Municipal Affairs podcast and show. We have another special live edition of the show, which is being recorded as we speak. So all these four people on this stage, as beautiful as they are going to be on their best behaviors and say everything correctly and not make me edit anything out of context. That'd be greatly appreciated. I'm your host, Christopher Brown. Today we're bringing you something a little bit special to our show, a whole lot more collaboration. Across Atlantic Canada, municipalities are facing challenges that don't stop at provincial borders. Housing, infrastructure, climate adaptation, governance reform, the list is as long as the stakes are high. But today we're looking at what happens when leaders come together, not just to compare notes, but to work towards a common goal in their respective provinces. Joining us are four of the most influential voices in municipal advocacy across the region, each representing the unique needs of their communities and common threads that tie them all together. Okay, I've got a big list, so I've got to make sure I do this right. From New Brunswick, we welcome Dan Murphy, Executive Director of the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick. From Nova Scotia, Juanita Spencer, CEO of the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities. Okay, so for the New Brunswick crowd, you did not do your service there. From Prince Edward Island, Satya Sen, Executive Director from the Federation of Prince Edward Island Municipalities. There you go. Again, New Brunswick, you're looking bad. And from Newfoundland and Labrador, Alexis Foster, Director of Advocacy with Municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador. Oh, see, The Rock is putting you all to shame. Together, we are going to explore what advocacy looks like across provincial lines and how our provincial organizations are aligning around core issues and what it means for the future of Atlantic Canada's towns, cities, and municipalities. So to get started, I have a basic question for all four of you, and I'm going to start with the brand new one on the list because she has been telling me she did not want to speak first. So I'm throwing her under the bus. Alexis, as only being in the job for 6 weeks, what does advocacy look like for MNL in Newfoundland and Labrador?
So advocacy for MNL is based on our 6 strategic priorities. So they are set by our board. And then from those, we actually get resolutions from our members during our AGM. So whatever resolutions come from that is what we advocate on for that year. So we do have, as I mentioned, those 6 strategic pillars that we focus on, sustainable municipal infrastructure being one, the regional approach is another, municipal fiscal stability, we have equity, diversity and inclusion, and community health and safety, and climate resilience. So those are the ones that we focus on, and whatever our members put forward in resolutions are what we act on. Annually, we review those, and then we determine what has to be advocated on a federal level, which we work in partnership with FCM as well for that, and what has to be advocated provincially.
Dan, would you like to talk about what advocacy means for the Union of Municipalities New Brunswick? Why do they give the guy that doesn't know names the longest names to talk about every single program? But Dan, over to you.
Sure, yeah, so for us, same as MNL, our advocacy is set by our board and by our members through resolution or through other decisions of the board. And for us this year, we're really focusing on a few key topics. So our big one, and our biggest one for the last number of years, has been around fiscal reform and property tax and assessment reform. So we're just about to roll out a new fiscal framework here in New Brunswick that we've been working on for the last couple of years. That's going to be an important one for us. And starting on property tax and assessment reform here this spring in partnership with our sister association, l'Association francophone des municipalités. So we're going to be working on that. Other priority that has been identified by the members this year is around cell phone and broadband coverage. So we have a bunch of challenges in New Brunswick around connectivity between some of our more dense communities even. I live in the heart of the city of Fredericton, and I don't get good cell phone coverage at my house. So for our folks living in rural, it's a whole other piece around safety and economic development. as well. And then housing and homelessness are the other ones that we're working on in function with the provincial government, trying to increase infrastructure investments to our municipalities and get to better agreement on how we deal with homelessness, unhoused, and addictions challenges that our members are facing. So those are some of the things that we're working on in New Brunswick.
Oh, we have another microphone if you want to keep that one microphone down there. Sorry. Technical. Wait.
Does this one work? There we go.
That works perfect. Juanita, for yourself, from Nova Scotia's perspective, what does advocacy mean for NSFM?
So a couple of years ago, NSFM made a decision, with the support of the membership, to actually move away from the resolution process so that we as an organization could be a little bit more reactive and be a little bit more responsive to the things that are happening around us. So our advocacy agenda is still driven by the membership, and it's through motion of council. The issues come forward to us as an organization, and we, of course, the board then reviews and sets the agenda of the issues that we're going to be working on. We also have a provincial government that has a really aggressive agenda, and we're starting to see that, and so. For now, really, a lot of our focus right now is dealing with and figuring out how we're going to engage in that aggressive agenda and how it's impacting municipalities. So some of the bigger issues that we are starting to tackle now, of course, are the onshore and the offshore wind, and we heard about the onshore wind discussion and some concerns that our membership had from Mayor Christine Blair earlier in our conversations, I guess it was yesterday. There's also, our Premier has come forward with an agenda around tapping into our critical minerals and things like uranium, fracking, again, another big one. Coastal protection, a very important issue that has come forward and has come down from municipalities to tackle, and NSFMs are engaged in that file, as well as stormwater and wastewater management. And these are just some of them. There's a number of things like everyone here on the stage is working on. I think the list is longer than we could go through, but these are some of the big ones that have really kind of hit NSFM over the last number of months, and so we're working on those and our strategies around engaging in those in a meaningful way.
Thank you, Sen. And this is a weird question because I just had you on the show this morning and we talked last week. It seems like we're best friends right now. But from the Federation of Prince Edward Islands perspective, what does advocacy mean?
Well, thank you, Chris. And I think for us, Federation of PEI Municipalities, we are focused on the larger picture. We're focused on reforming the local governance and local governance structure in PEI. PEI has about 57 municipalities covering only 35% of its land area, and the size of PEI is same size as Halifax Regional Municipality. We have municipalities, over 40 municipalities are less than 5 square kilometer and 400 resident population, no full-time staff, no capacity to deliver any kind of services. So for me, the biggest priority, and not just me, I mean like the Federation as a whole, an organization, is reforming the local governance. And this has been talked since 1973, since the first Royal Commission report came, and we haven't had any reforms since then, and report after report suggesting the same thing. The second thing would be fixing the municipal funding formula, which is we achieved an interim budget, we achieved an interim like a funding formula for next 2 years. This is a bridge funding formula, but we have to work on a long-term funding formula, which is a revenue sharing between the province and the municipalities. We were a little disappointed not to see an increase in policing. There was no increase in streets, but there was increase in land use planning, which is a good thing. And land use planning is one of the biggest, priority area as well, because zoning covers only 20% of PEI land area, and 80% has little or no regulations. So the province has been working on the provincial land use plan, and we are advocating on that. The fourth one would be, and perhaps this is the most important one, is the Municipal Government Act review, and it is currently going through a review, and Federation has been advocating for strengthening the legislation and making sure that we have sustainable, viable municipal governments on the island.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Seems like the list is long around the advocacy work that all four organizations are doing right now, and I'm going to pose this question to Dan, so we're going to keep on going down the list here. What does successful advocacy look like, and can you explain a win that you've had in the recent months for the union that you can say, this is where we were able to advocate to the provincial government on the betterment of municipalities?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, and I think for all of us on stage, is a win is something that helps our members do their jobs better, right? Like, it's to empower them to do the work that they need to do, and we know that work in municipal government is hard, it's complicated, and we're often doing it without the appropriate resources. So, for us, I think maybe a bit prematurely to count a win on it, but the new fiscal framework that's coming, it's a doubling of funding that municipalities had before last year. It still doesn't meet the full need of what municipalities need to accomplish, but it's still an additional, $60 million that we didn't have last year. So that's a positive step for us, and I think that's a recent win. Yeah.
Juanita, for yourself, from Nova Scotia's perspective, what was a recent win that you went back to your members and said, we got this for you?
Yeah, I think one of the big things recently, about a year and a half ago, was renegotiating a new service exchange agreement between the province and municipalities. It was a review of a very old, I think, 1995 agreement that we had, and it was realigning responsibilities of what is a municipal, what is a provincial responsibility. And there were a number of wins, there were a number of components within that, and there are a number of things still outstanding for us to discuss with the province around roads and other things. But we had a number of wins in there and financial gains for municipalities. Sometimes a win isn't, and if I could just speak on this a little bit, sometimes a win is turning a negative into something that is a bit of a positive, even though. And I'm just referring to perhaps the coastal protection for municipalities. It's not something that municipalities in Nova Scotia wanted, being responsible for a coastal protection. There was an act that wasn't proclaimed, and it was brought down to municipalities. But it is something that we have been able to work with the province on and to secure a great deal of funding to support municipalities through something, again, that we didn't want, but that we are getting tremendous amount of support. So first thing, NSFN was able to get funding to hire a coastal expert in-house. And in fact, we're very fortunate. He was retired public servant who was the architect of the Coastal Protection Act. So we were very fortunate to get that expertise. And then very recently, through our advocacy work, we were able to secure $1 million to help municipalities to implement some of the, bylaws to assist them in around coastal protection. So again, it wasn't a win in terms of not taking on a responsibility, but it was a win in terms of really getting some support for municipalities to do this and help them through.
Sen, for yourself, what does a recent win from your perspective look like to help municipalities move into this sort of new era that we live in, the Sen era, as they so colloquially called it this morning on the show? What does a win look like for FPEIM?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a result of Sen era, but my predecessor and the board, they worked on this. We got the Municipal Infrastructure Fund, which is subsidizing the cost of developing land by extending water and wastewater systems. That's a big win for us. Then, there are many wins that actually go unnoticed in our line of work. For example, some of our members were having issues with the planning department to get their plan approved. And, so we advocated for it, and some of those plans were getting approved afterwards. And afterwards, we realized that the province, there is a lack of clear communications from what the province wants, and hence, right now, the province is coming up with municipal planning standards regulations as part of the Planning Act. And that's going to help municipalities to have a clear idea about what are the needs. And that's something which I call a win, that finally we have something which will give us a clear direction of how to develop land use plans. The Federation of PEI Municipalities long advocated for a provincial land use plan, and to see the government finally acting on it, it's also a big win for us. And also to get the bridge funding, because for the last 3 years, there was no increase in funding for municipalities. And I asked for $30 million. All I get was $10 million in additional funding for the next 2 years, which is a small amount, but nevertheless, it's a win for us.
Alexis, down in, or I should say up, because we're technically in New Brunswick right now, up in Newfoundland and Labrador, what does a recent advocacy win look like for them, for MNL?
So one of the major successes for MNL in the last little while would be the federal amendment to the wastewater systems effluent regulations, so WSER. And many of you may know, but Newfoundland and Labrador had 150 municipalities who were not compliant when those regulations came into effect in 2015. So because of this, at that time, there was no route forward for these municipalities. So through some joint advocacy with FCM, transitional authorities have been granted. So that has given towns now up to 10 to 15 years to become compliant with those new regulations. So that is a huge win, and it is through that joint advocacy with FCM. And it really paved that path forward so that our municipalities now have some options where before they never, and they were just non-compliant. So it's great to see already. We've been working very closely now with Environment Climate Change Canada as well, and helping some of our municipalities move through that process. And that process has already seen almost 20 municipalities receive that TA, and we do have 8 more in the line there now.
So I have one last question, then we're going to do a bit of an open session here, and I'm going to start with Juanita, if we don't mind. The main theme of this year's conference at the Atlantic Mayors Congress here is collaboration. Collaboration, collaboration. From NSFM's perspective, what does collaboration mean with the member municipalities, and how do you ensure that the collaborative work that you do is heard at the provincial level or even at your board level?
Think on this one here. So for us, collaboration is again working together and coming together, ideally with the one voice for our membership. It is finding a path and finding those things that connect us and unite us, and working with those things to advance a common goal. And so NSFM does that. We work with our membership. We look to identify those common themes, those common areas where we can unite the membership and bring those issues forward. As an organization, it's really important that as an organization that represents all municipalities in our province, and there's 49 of them, there's lots of diverse opinions on things, there's lots of diverse needs on things, but it's our job to really find what it is that unites and collaborate and work together there. It is what strengthens us. It is what's going to advance our agenda. It's what's going to help us get to those tables at the provincial level and have those the necessary conversations. So it is something that we find very, we certainly value and we certainly strive to strengthen with our membership.
Sen, for yourself, what does collaboration mean?
Well, for me, it's a structured approach. First, you have to look at collaboration with your membership, and that's the first step. That bringing, as Vinita said, the differences of opinions, different voices, rural, urban. You have to balance it and present a united front, and that collaboration is important, also to strengthen the organization. But also collaboration with the province, because at the end of the day, municipalities are a creation of province, and we cannot, do anything without provincial support. If the province wants to take away jurisdiction, they can take away jurisdiction, which is not in the interest of municipal governments. But with a collaborative approach, we can find solutions to the problem that affects each and every one of us. And the third thing would be more of a regional approach, a regional collaboration with my counterparts here from Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and New Brunswick, to see what is the common issue amongst all of us and find a solution that work best for us. And this could be a research collaboration and advocacy collaboration. So I think that's my structured approach there.
Alexis, for yourself, what does collaboration mean for MNL?
Yeah, so collaboration is key to everything that we do at MNL. We listen to our members, and we don't know the issues unless we hear it from our members and from other partners, such as now we have Municipal Affairs, community engagement now. So when we talk about our province and our individual residents, and we listen to our members and what they're saying, it's incredibly important. Amplifying that voice, as Sen mentioned as well, what we see between the Atlantic group here, that collaboration and willingness to work together on key issues that impact all of our members. Collaboration, again, it's key. We amplify that voice, and we're much stronger together than we are individually.
Dan?
Sure.
Do you want me to ask the question again? You looked at me like I should ask the question.
No, I
again.
think I got it, or I'll answer the question I want to answer, I
Okay,
guess, as
go.
it goes sometimes.
You're on the road to being a politician. Good for you.
I've actually been trying to get away from being a politician. No, for us, collaboration has been really at the foundation of what the UMNB has been doing for the last 4 or 5 years. New Brunswick in the Atlantic context is a bit different. We had 3 municipal associations in the province up until 2 years ago. Collaboration, relationship building, and sort of the stuff that the union's been doing, we were able to merge 2 of those associations together to speak with one voice on issues that, I go back to the fiscal framework, I don't think we would have gotten this far if there were multiple cooks in the kitchen. So that unity piece comes about through good collaboration and being good partners. So that's the kind of thing that we're really supportive of. Again, in New Brunswick, where we have another association that we collaborate very well with, that hasn't always been the case. But again, through mutual respect and good partnership, we've been really able to work together. We signed an MOU to advocate on fiscal priorities together. And that comes about from everyone kind of understanding where they sit in the organization and how we work together. And really that has stopped government from dividing us as much as they used to and playing us off one another. And I think to Alexis's point and to Sen's point, I think there's more room for us as associations in the Atlantic context to work on that regional piece of collaboration. Mr. Williamson mentioned it earlier about sort of where Atlantic fits in the scope of the Canadian place and the US place, and I think by working together as a region more, I think we can make a bigger impact on the national and international level as well for our provinces and for our municipalities and people.
So the reason I asked those first 3 questions brings us to the sort of the open session of the question and answers, and it's about that regional collaboration that both Dan and Sen and Alexis and Juanita have talked about. From all your perspectives, and whoever wants to take this first, just jump in if you want, because I see the microphones are laying down, so everyone really doesn't want to jump into this one. What does regional collaboration mean for municipalities in rural Nova Scotia to be collaborating with another organization in rural Newfoundland and Labrador? Why is the approach that all 4 organizations on the stage have taken to work sort of closely together why is it important for municipalities right now?
So can I?
It's you, Juanita.
Can I back it up?
You jumped at that microphone.
I did, because I'm going to pull a Dan here and not answer the question that you asked, because I want to set just a little bit of context here about the collaboration amongst the 4 PTAs here, and just some of you may recall that have been elected for a while that back in 2020. The Atlantic PTAs actually signed an MOU. Bruce, you probably remember that. I think you were president at the time. And we signed an MOU for us to work together. We recognize that an Atlantic voice is stronger than perhaps the provincial voice. And to the points we were hearing earlier in the other presentation, we need to elevate this Atlantic voice, because we are stronger together, and we know Atlantic Canada isn't necessarily we're not hitting the mark. We're not necessarily resonating with Ottawa, and so we recognized that back in 2020. And to be fully honest with everybody, we've hit capacity challenges, of course, within our own organizations to really advance and take advantage of that MOU. Craig, you were there at the time, and part of that MOU. But things are happening. The world's evolving. We as organizations are evolving. We're growing. We recognize that we actually need to find the capacity to put an Atlantic lens. And I think it's really important to state here that we're not looking, I just want to state this, Melissa and that this is to support the work FCM is doing. They're doing great things. But we also think there's an Atlantic voice, an Atlantic story to tell that goes with these advocacy issues that they're talking about at that national level. You know, in Nova Scotia, when you're talking cellular service and that kind of thing, we know all too well from the storms that we've had and the natural disasters we've had what it means when we lose our cell service. So we think these are really important stories to get across. So this is the new focus that we have on it here. So I'll hand it off to someone else now.
Well, I was just going to add to that too, like from the perspective of our, 4 Atlantic provinces, they're talking to each other all the time and they're borrowing ideas off each other. So whether it's in public safety or in local governance or healthcare, they're talking to each other every day. So it really only makes sense for us to be more collaborative to sort of understand that, because if they're borrowing an idea from PEI or Nova Scotia or Newfoundland and Labrador, we want to be aware of what that is and how it's working so that we can, also support locally, but then also advocate for a national solution. Like, we've talked, about coastal erosion, obviously an issue that affects all of us. And it's something that as an Atlantic perspective, we think we could make a deal on to sort of push that perspective forward.
Yeah, and just to add to that, there is asymmetry that exists between provinces, and let's be honest about it. Like, I'm a province of 180,000 people, the smallest of Canadian jurisdiction. I don't have the kind of power. I have real asymmetry here when it comes to shaping national public policies. FCM is been doing the work, supporting, municipalities from coast to coast to coast on federal advocacy issues. But as Vinita mentioned, to put an Atlantic lens, for me, a PEI lens won't make any difference if I don't collaborate with my partners in the region and bring a regional lens to the table. And when we bring a regional lens to the table, then we are able to shape public policy. Between 4 of us, we have about 32 MPs. We have about 6 cabinet ministers, and at least 2 of the cabinet ministers that I know are from the Atlantic region. So you're really looking at, bringing your voice to the table. So when in Ottawa decides a new program or policy or bring a new legislation, they really hear us. They really hear our stories and say that, yeah, you matter as well. And so that we are not lost in the battle of the greats, the small ones are not lost in that battle.
Yeah, if I could, just one other thing. We talked about how our premiers are meeting. In an ideal world, if we can get behind where our premiers are, again, in an ideal world, it'd be really great to be able to have the municipal and provincial partners in Atlantic Canada talking with Ottawa. So that's where we hope to get someday. But right now, it's really tapping into the strength, to the work that they're doing in New Brunswick, the work that they're doing in PEI and in Newfoundland for NSFM to be able to tap into that, I think is fantastic. We do it. We've been doing it. We've had regular calls. We always have for years since I've started. And it's terrific, great advantage for us to be able to do that in that collaboration.
The regional collaboration is important in today's society. We've heard a lot about that over the last 2 days. The best thing I've ever heard from a municipal leader is, why reinvent the wheel when you could just steal from your neighbors and you can just steal their best bylaws or best policies? When your 4 organizations, the PTAs in Atlantic Canada, are working together, are you, and I'm going to say this so badly, but are you stealing from each other and saying, PEI is doing something over here, Newfoundland can do something over here? I'm going to throw it over to Alexis because she's really eager to talk about stealing, I guess.
I am, yeah, apparently. A past experience, we used to work in chamber world, and they used to call it R&D, rip off and duplicate. So any way that we can not recreate the wheel, we have limited resources, great ways to work together. And a lot of our issues and common issues that are facing our members we're all experiencing. So by working together and collaborating and sharing, maybe you've applied for funding through this mechanism. Maybe this is what works best for you. This is how this project has worked really well, say in Newfoundland and Labrador. So maybe PEI would like to try a similar project. So it is just about collaborating and building on that partnership, which, as Juanita mentioned, has been really in place since 2020 with that MOU.
Before Juanita jumps in, can I ask what the last thing you are indeed?
I don't know.
Okay. Juanita, after you.
Yeah, I also just want to put in even a little bit broader scope on all of this. I think, like you as elected officials, I often hear you say the value of going to these conferences, and that is the networking. I mean, there's the sessions, you learn a lot there, but it's the networking and the collaboration. And I feel that I'm very fortunate, of course, to have that here in Atlantic Canada, but I also want to make acknowledge the PTAs right across the country. We work together very well, and we work together very well. We share information. We share the work that we've each been doing. We share our internal processes because, again, we know the advantages of us being aligned in our organization. So, like you, we do meet with our counterparts across the country, and it's invaluable. I probably say it's probably our best meetings of the year are when we get together, and we were just together in Gatineau right before the FCM. So there's a lot of resources to tap into, and if you guys are not engaged with your PTAs, I encourage you to do so.
Just on one point to add to what Vanessa said, amongst our 4 organizations, communications teams is already engaging. The 4 executive directors meet pretty regularly, and we share a lot of knowledge, resources with each other. And that is key for me, for any one of us to think strategically how to move forward with our advocacy within province, but also at the region too.
I guess if you want an example of sort of R&D support, if you will, like for instance, when we sort of worked through the merger of our 2 associations, part of what came out of it was the creation of the Urban Municipal Caucus, so for our bigger centers. And Rob was very forthcoming with their UMC model, and Jean-Marc Nadeau with SUMA also shared with me a lot of great information. So instead of taking something, starting from scratch, I was able to at least start with a really solid plan of something that works with both organizations. And so instead of having to trial and error it a bunch, I took 2 models that worked, and so far things are going well.
Juanita, you were talking about how members should get involved in their PTAs and sort of talk to their PTAs. How can they support PTAs on the regional collaboration approach? Is there a path forward, or is there something that the PTAs look at for their members and say, this is the best way you can support us, or are you supported enough in your collaboration approach right now?
Sorry, what was the last bit, or are we?
Are you supported right now? Are you already supported enough by your members?
Well, I think, again, we're just really getting underway in the Atlantic approach, and we have a number of issues that I think we all have a mandate on from our memberships to engage in. There's around coastal, there's the broadband, of course there's infrastructure, we don't want to leave that one off the list for sure. There's public safety, there's immigration, there's a number of things that we have a mandate on already from our membership, and that's kind of our starting point right now. As we really figure out, and this is all new in terms of us really putting a concerted effort into to this working together to create and making space in our own advocacy, provincial advocacy, to add this piece into it. So we have that. So it's really it's going to be a case of the membership continuing to talk with us, share with us what their concerns are, what they need, what are some of the things that we might be able to tap into and provide information to them and go out and secure that for them. So it really is engagement, and to take a look at those newsletters we send out and respond to us. We as an organization, I'm not sure about the other PTAs, but we do go out to our members quite a bit, and I apologize quite often for that, the number of surveys we might send out or the questions we ask to get a response to, but it really is what helps shapes what we do, and we'll continue to do that as we go down this path.
Going once, twice? Nope, okay. I want to talk about the future. We talk about the Atlantic Lens, we talk about regional collaboration, we talked about the MOU that was signed a few years ago. What does the future hold for the 4 PTAs when it comes to that Atlantic Lens and how you can more work together closely to ensure the viability of Atlantic Canada and their member municipalities? Who wants to take that one first? Because you all look like you're very concerned about taking it.
I mean, I think for us, one of the things, like, and this is part of the discussion that we're having amongst ourselves, is like, what does a renewed MOU in 2025 look like from what it was in 2020? Like 2020, we're looking almost pre-pandemic times. Like the world has changed so much, as we've talked about here the last couple of days. So I think it's about coordinating how we want to work together a bit more. How do we share resources? How do we, prioritize jointly our issues, and then how do we action them? So I think for us, pending the next few months is going to be about talking about putting together what that work plan looks like, seeing where we go, and sort of how we support one another. But I think, again, it's kind of clear that there needs to be more collaboration and cooperation to sort of push that Atlantic Lens forward on things.
And I'll just add one thing. I think our first step here is letting our MPs know that we're together, and getting that out and making it known that we are a united voice and want to work with them.
Just, see, at some point we have to start, telling the elected officials and the decision makers that we have one, we have common issues and that affects all 4 of us. And that would probably require us to agree upon those common issues. Like, what are those common issues? Be it, as Vinita mentioned, could be broadband, cellular services, could be immigration, could be infrastructure, and climate change. And then go out, reach out to the elected officials, the MPs and the cabinet ministers, and say, like, this is what we all 4 agree upon, and this is what we inquire from you. And, send our suggestions to FCM so they can advocate, put an Atlantic lens to their advocacy and advocate on our behalf as well.
No, I got a nod, a shake of the head that I'm good in M&L. Okay. Before I ask my last question, I just want to remind people we will be taking questions from the floor in a few minutes. So Craig over there, Tyler. I called him Trevor when he got off the elevator a few days ago, and he told me that's all he's been called a few times, so that's all I can remember now. So you don't tell me your name is wrong, because that's all I'll remember you for the rest of your life. So I have one last question to everyone. And we are in a very new time in the world. We have what's going on down south. Mayor Reardon of St. John is down in Tampa for with the FCM, talking about tariffs with their U.S. counterparts. We had just the last session about the U.S.-Canada relations. What does the relationship look like between your individual provinces and the regional approach of Atlantic Lens when dealing with the ongoing trade disputes down south? Alexis, do you want to start first? No? Okay. Okay, Dan first. And then
I mean, I guess as the border province here, maybe it's best to start here. For us, it's about relationship building with our neighbors. I would say prior to the most recent U.S. election, we didn't do a lot of talking with our sister association in Maine. We've certainly opened up those doors over the last few months and talking with them. We've extended an invitation for them to attend our annual conference this year just to see what we're all about and trying to make those connections. But I mean, a lot of the speakers this week talked about where New Brunswick sits in terms of the impact of trade with the U.S. So for us, that's not going away. We have to figure out how to work in that world, and I think a lot of it has to do with that communication and that advocacy that Mayor Reardon is doing, and that Mayor Mood and Juanita did, and sort of the sort of stuff that we're doing going down to the U.S. and helping make our case. And I think, again, that collaboration angle and putting New Brunswick and Atlantic Canada into a better spot federally to work on the international piece. So I think that's what we've got to do. But it comes down to collaboration and relationship building again. And Mr. Williamson said it best. It's the local level. It's where people live, and it's where people work. So we've got to keep reminding them of why that's important.
So with MNL, we have been very fortunate. Our premier has actually constructed a roundtable on trade, so there's quite a bit of conversation with all the industry associations in the province about trade and its impact. Currently, we don't know the full impact that it's going to have on our province and our communities. But we do know that there are certain items that our municipalities cannot get from other places, so they're having to purchase these items from the United States, such as wastewater treatment chemicals. So we do know that there's certainly a challenge, and Newfoundland and Labrador is very vulnerable as well. As was mentioned earlier, 96% of our snow crab is exported to the United States. So it's something that we're very, very mindful of, and the impact of we could lose potentially 20,000 jobs due to these tariffs, which is significant considering our labor force is about 280,000 people. So this is something that MNL is continually mindful of. We continue to collaborate, as Dan mentioned, with our Atlantic counterparts as well, and just try to ensure that the municipal voices of our members is heard at all the tables that we can manage to reach.
You see, in PEI, 25% of PEI's GDP depends upon export to the United States. Does it impact municipalities directly? Not so much, but it impacts communities. And that's when it becomes important that, we have, we need to look into the long-term perspective. The province is already, looking into removing the trade barriers, and I think that will be important moving forward. And that's bringing us to the point where municipalities in the region, should start looking at the economic futures of the region and what can we do to remove those barriers and what can we do to increase the economic resilience of the region. And this is where the 4 PTAs becomes more important and to raise that voice.
Thanks. So from NSFM's perspective, when the tariffs came into effect, we did go out to the membership and we just asked them, what does this mean to you? What does this mean for your municipality? And like Alexa said, there are certain things that they need to go to the States to procure. So there's fleet vehicles, was one of them, and of course the chemicals in that, as was mentioned already. But what we saw mostly from our membership in response was the concern for the community, for the businesses within their community. And so that's something that that's, I guess, was the biggest concern and one thing that we have been following, we have been watching at this point. Our premier, of course, was kind of led the way in terms of reducing some of those trade barriers and was reaching out. And so, again, another file for us to engage in. I think one of the most important things, important asks that we have out there right now is we need a seat at the table. And it's not just at the table, just being there. It's a meaningful place at that table to be there as a true partner. There's some big discussions happening right now, and so for NSFM, that's our big priority, is to go after that seat and to make sure that we are engaging.
Speaking of table, I have one last question strictly to Dan, if you don't mind. Within literally a few days after everyone has left St. John, there's another conference that is happening literally right across the hallway, and that is the provincial ministers of municipalities and communities from across Canada are gathering here in St. John days after this convention. You are presenting to them, I believe. What is the Atlantic lens that you're going to be bringing to that table? Because we just heard all 4 of you agreed we need a seat at the table. You were at that table. What is the Atlantic lens that you're bringing to that table? I'm putting you on the spot here.
Sure. I mean, for us, it's going to be encouraging, I guess, a better partnership between all of the departments of local government or municipal affairs and working with PTAs. I think that's one of the things that we're going to stress. And the other part, of course, is supporting the work that FCM is doing around the Prosperity Partnership and around ensuring that municipalities have the financial tools. And, for us, I think we've been talking about this. Craig mentioned it. David Campbell mentioned it. Like, we don't have the same capacity, that other provinces and other municipalities and other provinces have. So I think to bring that perspective to that table, again, with collaboration from the FCM, that's sort of what we're going to try to get across. We don't have a lot of time, so it's going to be a very quick presentation, but we appreciate the opportunity to be in front of all of those ministers next week.
Is there a way that we can get into that room and just write on the walls what we all want from our individual municipalities? I'm not saying that we would do that. I'm just saying, could we? Juanita?
And Dan, our ask of you
There we go.
is that you do tell them that, you know, in that ideal world that I talked about before, is that we can find that common ground, that we can have municipal voice, provincial voice united to go to Ottawa.
Well, before we turn it over to the crowd, I want to thank you all for doing this. So do we have any questions from the floor about collaboration advocacy? Andrew Black, Mayor Black from Tantramar, go ahead.
I think it's a question around collaboration, maybe not, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Okay.
As past president of the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick, one of the things that was frustrating for me, and I'm pretty sure that Dan would agree, and Dan, you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, I wanted to hear from the other three, was that the relationship with the provincial government. At the time that I was president, it seemed that the provincial government was making decisions about municipalities without municipalities. And it was really, really frustrating. No matter how many times we wanted to sit around the table and talk about the things that the provincial government was going to do that would impact us directly, they would either not listen or just make the decision without ever talking to us. So that was a real roadblock when we were talking to provincial departments, pretty much across the board. So I wondered, what are the biggest challenges when you're talking to the provincial government as EDs for your PTAs? Are those stumbling blocks the same as what we experience here in New Brunswick? And I will say that it's gotten better with the new provincial government here in New Brunswick, but it's still not there. They're still doing those same kinds of things. So I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Who wants to take that first? I feel like Dan shouldn't, but I want to kind of ask him because Mayor Black said you don't have to answer it, but I kind of want to make you answer it, but I won't. Juanita, do you want to go? Oh, Sen, do you want to go first?
Thank you for the question. We have a pretty unique situation in PEI. Currently, we're having some issues with the provincial government to build that relationship with the minister in particular. But we have a great, fantastic relationship with the staff, with the bureaucracy and the civil service. So when we have the political level, when things doesn't go well, we keep the dialogue open and we keep continuing those relationships that we have built over the years. Usually the provincial government in general is pretty good at consulting with us, but at times we have seen that they come up with legislations or regulatory changes that they really don't take municipalities into consideration or even municipal concerns, and that is problematic to me. And that is problematic because just because we are under your regulation does not mean that we don't have a voice there. And one of the best ways to move forward with that would be actually, build relationship at different level. And I've seen the success happens when there are multi-modal relationship. You have relationship at staff level, you have relationship at political level, and you have personal relationship. And PEI being a small jurisdiction, it's all about relationship. And sometimes, yes, you will hit the roadblock. Sometimes we would not agree with each other on certain policy areas. But as long as we have the respectability and civility in engaging with each other, I think we can achieve success. Maybe in short term, maybe in long term.
I think my past president would know sort of the thing that we've been working on for a long time around the concept of, the provincial government likes to look at us and our members as just another stakeholder. But we're not just another stakeholder. We're an order of government. We're elected the same way that our provincial counterparts are, and so we need to be partners, to Juanita's point. It's not just about being in the room and being heard. It's about engaging us in decision-making and bringing us around to have those conversations and taking us seriously as order of government to order of government. And to Mayor Black's point, it's gotten better, but it's still not great if you want to look at the example of the assessment freeze that municipalities got imposed on here in New Brunswick just a month ago, that was done without us, about us without us, I guess is what I would say. So, it's good, it's getting better, but there's still a lot of work to go. And I think even among the civil servants as well, they still use the term stakeholder a lot, but we're not a stakeholder. And when you're talking about things that directly affect an order of government, you need to go deeper than just say, well, we have a duty to consult you and we need to talk to you. And, well, we heard you, we don't agree with you, but we heard you. It's got to be more than that.
Great question, and I have to say, it's probably an issue that we're seeing right across the country. As I said, we just came back from meetings with our counterparts, and that same sort of thing, stepping into the municipal autonomy, is something that we are all grappling with, and how best to do that. From the NSFM perspective, it really is continuing to build relationships to the best that we can. Recently, in our last sitting of the legislature, a bill came through, Bill 24, on the Joint Regional Transportation Agency. And there was a little bit of stepping on toes within that bill. One of the things NSFM has determined and made the decision to do is how we do our advocacy. And there certainly is a number of folks that would like to see us out in front of the legislature with placards and things like that, but NSFM has made the decision that we are going to take a very different approach in hopes of being able to influence some of this stepping on the municipal toes. And we had a number of meetings with our province, and we've been able to influence legislation to a certain extent. Again, not necessarily everything we wanted or where we wanted it to go, but we are working on it, and it is through that relationship building to try and soften what it is that's coming at us right now. But it seems to be an issue right across the country.
So I would build as well on the relationships being key. Again, 6 weeks in, 7 weeks in, something like that. So I can't speak directly on too many of the key examples. But what I have seen already is that the provincial government, in our case, is very keen to engage with us. We've only just received a new premier now, like 3 weeks ago. He's already tried to set up some meetings with us as well. We do have a new minister of our Municipal Affairs who was a municipally elected official. So that is great for our sector. And we're very optimistic to see how things go forward in the next little while. But it's given that they are trying to put out different legislation throughout their mandate, so sometimes they don't necessarily engage with us how they should, but we do appreciate all engagement that we have been seeing in the last little while.
So last question to Mayor Breen from
All right, well,
St.
thanks very
John's.
much. We had French and English, and some say that I speak neither official language, so.
You can ask the question in Newfoundlander if you want.
All right.
How you doing?
What do you at? So collaboration is many different levels here, and I spoke yesterday about collaboration on the mental health and addiction issue, and we don't really have that collaboration with the other levels of government. We also have an opportunity with the Atlantic Mayors Congress and with the provincial territorial organizations to have a collaboration there. So I'm going to make a suggestion. I think if we got together and we approached the Atlantic Premiers and asked to attend the next Atlantic Premiers meeting to have that discussion on mental health and addictions, on homelessness, so they can hear from us what we're seeing in our cities. Because, we just heard another presentation from and we hear it at FCM, and we hear it from the US people, that it's the mayors and the councils that know what's happening on the streets in their city. Well, we should share that with them and see, and then by taking one issue and building that collaboration, the next time it becomes easier. And then we hopefully will move into a routine and if we can do it regionally, maybe that's a model the rest of the country could follow in doing that sort of thing. So we may be opening up a new door here. We always do things a half an hour earlier in Newfoundland, so So anyway, I'll put that out there as a suggestion just to get your thoughts on it. But I think it's time that we up our game on this, and I think it's time that we started to get more aggressive in dealing with the issues in our city, rather than watching two other groups make decisions that they impose upon us. So we should be part of that conversation.
Well, I want to thank everyone for tuning in, because this is being recorded live and going out. So for those who tuned in, thank you so much. For everyone who is here at the conference, thank you so much for listening, for participating. And to our panelists, can we get a big round of applause for all four provincial territorial associations who do incredible work behind the scenes? To learn more about the provincial associations that were on stage here today, the links of their websites will be in the show notes below, so please check them out, because they are great resources for your municipality in their individual provincial areas. I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation and learning more about that Atlantic lens.